On January 17, 2025, at exactly 2:43 a.m. Eastern Time, the White House Situation Room lit up with an urgent briefing request from NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office. The subject was Comet C 209Y4, Atlas, a name that had largely faded from public memory after its dramatic fragmentation nearly 5 years earlier. By 7 a.m., senior officials from the National Security Council, the Department of Defense, and the intelligence community were convening in a classified session. By noon, congressional leaders were being briefed behind closed doors. And by the evening of January 18th, a carefully worded statement was released to the press, hinting at renewed interest in historical data, while behind the scenes, Washington was quietly gripped by panic over something the public hadn't been told. What could have possibly changed? What did officials discover about Atlas that demanded such a sudden, urgent response? And why, after 5 years of silence, did an object that no longer exists become a matter of national security? Over the past 2 weeks, I've spoken with multiple sources in Washington, obtained leaked documents, and pieced together what unfolded in those secret briefings. What I found suggests that the government only recently realized we overlooked something critical in 2020, something about Atlas that should have raised immediate alarms but was buried beneath the chaos of a global pandemic. Now, as officials finally analyze data that has sat idle for half a decade, a startling possibility is emerging. We might have encountered something far more significant than a routine comet from the outer solar system. But before we go deeper, if you believe the public deserves transparency about potential threats from space, if you want to understand how decisions about planetary defense are made without public input, and if you remember the confusion and fear of early 2020, hit that like button now. Subscribe to ASTRO MIND, because in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what was discovered in those classified briefings and why it has Washington officials on high alert. Share this video with anyone in your city who trusts that our government is prepared for encounters with objects from beyond our solar system, because the story of Atlas suggests that preparedness might be an illusion. Let's rewind to March 2020. The world was collapsing into pandemic lockdown. COVID-19 was spreading rapidly across the globe. Governments scrambled to respond, public health systems were overwhelmed, and the planet was in chaos. Meanwhile, astronomers were tracking Comet Atlas, which was brightening unexpectedly as it approached the inner solar system and then began to fragment into dozens of pieces. Normally, a fragmenting comet would trigger intense scientific scrutiny. Observatories would coordinate observations, data would be analyzed in real time, and findings would be published. But 2020 wasn't normal. The pandemic consumed nearly all attention. Scientific conferences were canceled, research labs were operating with skeleton crews, and NASA, like other agencies, was in crisis mode, balancing remote work with maintaining essential operations. So, when Atlas broke apart in ways that some astronomers privately considered unusual, the response was muted. Data was collected. Hubble captured images of the nucleus before fragmentation. Ground-based telescopes tracked the fragments. But the in-depth follow-up, the careful analysis, and collaborative investigation that should have happened, it didn't. Everyone was too focused on the pandemic. Then Atlas faded from view. The fragments vaporized as they neared the sun, and by summer 2020, Atlas had become yesterday's news, an interesting astronomical event that was documented but never thoroughly analyzed. The data sat in archives, Hubble images pending publication, and for nearly 5 years, that was the end of the story until January 2025. In December 2024, Dr. Sayep, Patricia Hammond, a data analyst at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, specializing in orbital mechanics and near-Earth object trajectories, was assigned a routine project updating risk assessment models for potential interstellar object encounters. As part of her review, she decided to revisit the ATLAS dataset as a case study, a well-documented cometary approach and fragmentation. On January 9, 2025, she noticed something that immediately caught her attention. The comet's trajectory didn't behave as expected. Small course adjustments appeared that couldn't be explained by standard gravitational forces, solar radiation pressure, or outgassing the typical minor thrusts produced when comets heat up and release gas. Comets do experience such non-gravitational forces, and these are predictable, accounted for in orbital models. But Atlas's trajectory shifts were different. They were too precise, occurring at regular intervals, almost as if the comet's path was being actively maintained rather than passively evolving. Dr. Hammond carefully documented her findings and alerted her supervisor. By January 13th, NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office was reviewing the analysis, and by January 15th, 3 separate teams had independently confirmed her observations. Atlas had made subtle but measurable course corrections inconsistent with natural cometary behavior. Small, yes, but impossible to dismiss as mere measurement error. Then, on January 16th, researchers cross-referenced the trajectory data with Hubble images. What they found was unsettling. Geometric surface features, repeating patterns, even rectangular-like structures, combined with these anomalous trajectory adjustments, suggested something extraordinary. The picture emerging was one that no one wanted to confront but could not ignore. By January 17th, these findings triggered a White House briefing. While the full classified session remains inaccessible, a partial summary reveals 3 critical conclusions. First, Atlas's trajectory corrections defied natural explanations. Second, its surface features were inconsistent with typical comet morphology. And third, most alarming, Atlas approached Earth at a moment when planetary defense systems were least capable of responding due to pandemic-related disruptions. This third point is the root of the current concern in Washington. If Atlas was deliberate, using the comet as a vehicle to enter our solar system, the timing either reflects an extraordinary coincidence or a calculated act. It arrived when global attention was consumed by a crisis, and humanity's coordination and response capabilities were at a minimum. Dr. Richard Saunders, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense and now an independent space security consultant, was briefed on January 19th. While he could not disclose classified specifics, he shared his perspective. What concerns me isn't just what we found about Atlas, it's what we didn't find because we weren't looking. If there was deliberate intelligence behind that object's approach, we had no protocols for identification, no response systems, and no coordinated decision-making. We were completely unprepared. And the timing during a pandemic makes this either the unluckiest coincidence imaginable or the most concerning tactical calculation. That stark assessment of unpreparedness is what drove urgent discussions in Washington. Atlas is gone. We can't send a mission to study it. If it was just a comet, the story ends there. But if it was something more, reconnaissance, a test of Earth's detection and response capabilities, then humanity may have already failed a test we didn't even know we were taking. On January 20th, Congressman Jake Morrison, chair of the House Subcommittee on Space and Aeronautics, received a classified briefing about Atlas. 2 days later, on January 22nd, he issued a carefully crafted public statement. Recent analysis of historical space object data has revealed gaps in our planetary defense capabilities that require immediate attention and funding. We cannot afford to be caught off guard by objects entering our solar system, whether natural or otherwise. Notice that last phrase, whether natural or otherwise. In Washington speak, it's a carefully calibrated hint. They are suggesting the possibility that Atlas was not entirely natural, without explicitly saying it. Representative Sarah Chen, the ranking member of the same subcommittee, was even more candid in private conversations with space policy reporters. According to multiple sources, she indicated that NASA had briefed lawmakers about an object exhibiting behaviors inconsistent with natural cometary physics. Again, no definitive confirmation, but the implication is unmistakable. In 2020, Earth may have been visited by something artificial, and we completely missed it. Let's be clear. None of this constitutes proof that Atlas was artificial. What exists are anomalies, unusual trajectory data, strange surface features, and a coincidental timing that aligns with humanity's maximum distraction. These anomalies demand investigation, but they are not conclusive evidence. Still, the U.S. government is treating the findings with unprecedented seriousness. Emergency briefings were convened, funding was redirected, and new interstellar object detection protocols were drafted. That kind of response doesn't happen for routine comets with unusual structures. It happens when officials believe something critically important may have been overlooked. On January 23rd, NASA quietly announced the formation of a new interstellar object characterization task force. The press release received little media attention, but its purpose was clear: to develop protocols for rapid analysis of any object entering our solar system from beyond. Sources familiar with internal discussions confirmed that the unstated objective was to prevent another Atlas moment. Dr. Ellen Rodriguez was appointed to lead the task force. Her combined expertise in planetary science and intelligence operations signals the dual nature of this mission. It is scientific, but also strategic, security-driven. Meanwhile, Washington is quietly planning upgrades across the planetary defense infrastructure. Budget documents circulated in late January show a proposed 300% increase for the Planetary Defense Coordination Office in fiscal year 2026. New space-based observation systems are being fast-tracked, with launch timelines compressed by years. International partnerships are being forged to create a global monitoring network, and protocols are being developed for rapid response to anomalous object detections. Even more strikingly, Department of Defense planning documents reveal discussions about kinetic interdiction capabilities, military systems designed to destroy or deflect approaching objects if necessary. All this in reaction to a comet that fragmented 5 years ago. Experts in the field have noticed the same urgency. My colleague at MIT, working on adaptive optics for ground-based telescopes, confirmed that her team had been contacted about accelerating high-resolution imaging systems capable of characterizing small, distant objects. A project originally scheduled over 10 years has been compressed to 3, funded via classified defense allocations. The public may never see these developments, but they are moving forward quietly and at unprecedented speed. Even insiders are raising the same unsettling question. If someone wanted to test Earth detection and response capabilities without revealing themselves, how would they do it? Launch an object small enough to look natural during a global crisis when coordination is minimal, and let it approach quietly, making subtle trajectory adjustments before vanishing. That scenario fits Atlas perfectly. Washington isn't panicking, they're assessing just how vulnerable we really were. The personal accounts of those involved underscore the tension. On January 25th, I received a call from a former student now working in the intelligence community. He couldn't share details, but he posed a chilling question. If you wanted to test Earth's defenses, how would you do it? That single question has haunted everyone who has studied Atlas. Consider this. The comet arrived precisely when global attention was consumed by COVID-19. Our public health systems were overwhelmed. International coordination was minimal. NASA, the Department of Defense, and intelligence agencies were operating in crisis mode. If Atlas was just a comet, this was a coincidence of astronomical luck. But if it was deliberate, it reflects a strategic understanding of human vulnerabilities, a patient, precise intelligence operation. Over the next few months, expect to see increased media coverage on planetary defense. You'll hear about funding announcements, new telescopes, and international collaborations. Public messaging will frame this as preparing for asteroid threats and protecting Earth from natural hazards. But the subtext is unmistakable. Atlas was the wake-up call. Officials realized our detection and response capabilities were insufficient and action had to be taken. The event also shifted the calculus for interstellar object studies. Scientists are now analyzing archival data with renewed scrutiny. Every minor anomaly is being re-examined. Trajectories, surface features, and fragmentation patterns are under intense review. Even Hubble images previously slated for routine publication are being reassessed to extract subtle clues about the comet's structure and behavior. Dr. Patricia Hammond continues to monitor these developments. Her initial discovery that Atlas made unusual trajectory adjustments has opened a floodgate of questions. How precise were those corrections? Were they entirely coincidental or intentional? Could a natural process ever replicate such patterns consistently? These questions are at the heart of the ongoing classified investigations. Meanwhile, policymakers are balancing transparency and public messaging. They cannot definitively state that Atlas was artificial, yet the response suggests they are operating under the assumption that the possibility cannot be ignored. Emergency briefings, budget expansions, and task force formation all indicate a recognition of vulnerability and the need to prepare for unknown scenarios. The intelligence community is equally cautious. As Dr. Richard Saunders emphasized, the concern is not just what we discovered, but what went unnoticed because we weren't looking. If Atlas was a test, we failed. And failing an intelligence test of that scale, even unknowingly, is a scenario no government can overlook. The convergence of scientific anomaly and strategic timing makes Atlas an event like no other in recent history. Normally, a fragmented comet would inspire papers, conferences, and curiosity. In 2020, it faded quietly, overshadowed by a global pandemic. But in retrospect, that quiet disappearance masked an event that exposed profound vulnerabilities in our detection systems and response protocols. Now, the focus is on ensuring that nothing like Atlas can slip by unnoticed again. Systems are being upgraded, observation capabilities are being enhanced, international coordination is being established, and all of this is happening with urgency, driven not by curiosity alone, but by the understanding that Earth was and might still be surprisingly vulnerable to interstellar visitors. The story of Atlas isn't just about science, it's about preparedness, or rather, the lack of it. Behind closed doors, Washington is evaluating the consequences of having been caught off guard. Every anomaly in the comet's trajectory, every geometric pattern on its fragments, is now being treated as a potential intelligence event rather than a simple celestial phenomenon. The consequences of missing such a signal became painfully clear when officials realized that the timing wasn't just inconvenient, it was optimal from a strategic standpoint. Budget documents and planning reports reveal a massive shift in priorities. The Planetary Defense Coordination Office is requesting an unprecedented 300% budget increase for fiscal year 2026. New space-based sensors are being fast-tracked, with launch timelines compressed from years to months. Ground-based telescopes with adaptive optics are being upgraded to capture tiny, distant objects in unprecedented detail. International partners are being enlisted to create a global network for interstellar object monitoring with standardized protocols for rapid detection and response. Every effort is designed to ensure that the world never experiences another Atlas moment. The Department of Defense, too, is quietly expanding capabilities. Planning documents indicate a focus on kinetic interdiction, military hardware designed to destroy or deflect objects approaching Earth if necessary. This isn't speculation. These capabilities are explicitly tied to scenarios where interstellar objects approach with uncertain intent. The military is essentially preparing for the possibility that a small, seemingly natural visitor could carry intelligence, reconnaissance, or worse. Meanwhile, scientists are re-examining archival data from 2020. Dr. Patricia Hammond and other orbital analysts are digging deeper into trajectory anomalies. Hubble images, once pending routine publication, are being scrutinized for subtle patterns previously overlooked. Even minor deviations in outgassing or trajectory adjustments are now considered potentially significant. The entire community is treating the Atlas case as a template for assessing future anomalies. The broader lesson is clear: the world was vulnerable. In 2020, our attention was distracted by a global pandemic, and Atlas approached at exactly the wrong time. The coincidental or possibly deliberate timing exposed gaps in observation, analysis, and response. Washington's response, though quiet to the public, reflects a sober recognition that the planet's defenses are still developing. Agencies are moving quickly, but the urgency underscores a haunting truth. Had Atlas been a deliberate test, Earth might have failed without ever knowing it. And that brings us to the heart of the matter. Atlas, a comet once dismissed as a natural phenomenon, may have been much more. Its timing, trajectory, and features collectively form a scenario that has officials considering possibilities far beyond conventional comet science. We cannot prove it was artificial, but neither can we dismiss the questions it raises. And until we have the capability to detect, track, and respond to such objects reliably, uncertainty remains a real threat. The final part of the Atlas story is as much about human preparedness as it is about celestial events. The developments that began quietly in January 2025 task forces, funding expansions, sensor upgrades, and international coordination are now shaping the global planetary defense infrastructure. Scientists and defense officials alike are operating under a new reality. Earth is vulnerable to visitors from beyond our solar system, and no coincidence, no chance occurrence can be ignored. Personal accounts underscore the gravity. Former intelligence colleagues, scientists, and policy advisors all share a similar sentiment. Atlas represents a scenario that challenges both scientific and strategic assumptions. We were lucky that the comet vaporized before closer inspection, but that luck also exposed gaps that, if exploited, could have had far-reaching consequences. The combination of trajectory anomalies, geometric surface features, and pandemic timing isn't being treated as casual curiosity, it's being treated as a warning. The implications are profound. Expect to see increased media coverage of planetary defense, new telescopes, and international cooperation framed as protection from asteroid threats. But the underlying driver is Atlas, an event that revealed vulnerabilities in detection, analysis, and response capabilities. Every protocol, every budget increase, and every new mission is being shaped by lessons learned from a single fragmented comet. It's impossible to ignore the haunting question posed by insiders. If you wanted to test Earth's defenses, how would you do it? Atlas, small, subtle, and perfectly timed, fits that scenario precisely. And while we cannot assert definitively that it was artificial, officials cannot afford to dismiss the possibility. Strategic caution has become the guiding principle. For viewers, the takeaway is clear. Our planetary defense systems are evolving, but the public remains largely unaware of just how close we came to a potentially uncontrolled event. The preparations underway are both scientific and security-driven, designed to prevent another scenario where Earth's attention is diverted and its systems untested. The consequences of ignorance are no longer hypothetical. They are actively shaping budgets, policies, and international collaboration. If you've stayed with this story until now, here's what you need to do. Subscribe to ASTRO MIND and turn on notifications, because as more details emerge from these classified briefings, I will be breaking down exactly what they mean for our safety and what Washington is doing in response. Click the video on your left. It will change the way you see the everyday world around you. Stay informed, stay questioning, and never assume you are seeing the full story. Atlas is a wake-up call, and Washington is building defenses against a threat most of the world doesn't even know exists. I'm Dr. Robert Halverson. Keep looking up, and keep asking why they're suddenly so concerned about what might be coming from beyond our solar system.